I'm Adam Gorney. This is Greg Smith, National Recruiting Analyst, and we are here today talking about the potential of the moving early signing period to earlier in December. And Greg, I've talked to some coaches about this, and they kind of think it's sort of not really all that helpful. It doesn't, really change any of the dynamics that they've been dealing with. What's kind of your take on it, and where do you see it if earlier in December, right before those conference championships, help?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like on first blush, you're like, okay, moving it out of the log jam time that it is has to help, but then only moving it potentially up, earlier in December only creates other issues, right? Like I think on one hand, it does loosen things up a little bit on the back end of the month, but it just creates an entirely different issue for some teams earlier in the month, right? If you're getting ready for conference championship games, but then also trying to hold on to your class or put the finishing touches onto your class. That creates a different problem. It really just spreads the stress to a different area. I think that personally, if you're going to move it, you need to move it to the summer, or at least one of those signing dates. But it seems like we're getting a lot of SEC pushback on that portion of it.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting, that SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey is the one sort of promoting this. I think he's probably comfortable that with the extended playoff. I don't think that the SEC championship game matters all that much.
Right.
Both teams are probably locks to get in. This past season, Alabama beats Georgia. Georgia doesn't get in. That wouldn't be the case with a one-loss Georgia team in the expanded playoff. But it doesn't solve any of the problems that it's trying to solve. The portal window will still open at around the same time, so there will be confusion for the high school kids. Teams, at least 8, will be competing for conference championships during that week. Maybe some teams trying to get into that playoff. High school kids will be finishing state championship runs. That is before a little bit of a window there where they can take visits in December before signing day. That goes away. Those are the problems. So one solution would be to move it to August, keep February as the late signing period, move it to August. One of the other scenarios is to just go back to February. December was well-meaning for the kids that wanted to sign early. But of course, it got screwed up because coaches basically pressured everybody to sign in December through that window.
Right.
And then something else that I've sort of proposed, which is actually not good for our business, so maybe this video will be cut, and is to just have an open signing period. Like a kid could sign from September 1st of his senior year till February 5th or whatever it is.
Right.
Whenever he wants to sign, he can sign. If he's a 3-time legacy to Wisconsin and everybody knows he's going to Wisconsin, sign on February 5th, which is your mom's birthday or whatever you want to do. Why have to wait to December? So I don't know. I don't know where this goes, and I don't know why any of this helps. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting. Of those proposed scenarios, I actually think the middle one, which is just going back to only having February, might actually be the best of those solutions, because everything kind of has an issue. But it's funny because, when you were talking about that, it made me think, one of the issues back before the December signing period happened was coaches didn't like the fact that they had to babysit their commitments during that time, right? You spent so much time going to see those guys, making sure they were still in the boat, and definitely not what we see now, where you're basically always working on the next class during that time. So now, if you go back to that, is that preferred by coaches then, which they didn't like in the first place, but now would they prefer that to then having to do it what you're having now, where everything is so compressed? They might go back if given the opportunity to do that versus keeping it the same way or moving it up in December. I'd be really curious to know about that, because I think that is, I guess, the lesser of two evils in that scenario, because it does December, like it was an unintended consequence to have so much stuff in December. Especially like you mentioned with the portal window opening up at that same time, because then you have the other portion of it, which is coaches want to save some of those spots potentially for portal additions. Now, though, it feels like you don't even have to worry about that as much, even as that whole thing has evolved. We've seen teams just continue to take players. Like, how many players has Ohio State taken just this offseason, right? Like, so none of that stuff seems to matter. And even if you are full on scholarships, you can do basically a premium NIL deal and have some somebody do a walk-on for say, like, it's
Yeah.
so much different than I guess it intended or started off intending to be, that I think having to change those rules on the fly is necessary. I just don't think there are any clean solutions for the problems that we have.
Yeah, anybody who reads Rivals regularly knows I hate belly aching college football millionaire coaches saying
Yeah.
that they have too much work to do, and it's like, okay, there's everybody's doing a lot of work, but if this is about us, December does not work. I mean, there's not a now the portal is kicked into massively high gear. So
Right.
let coaches deal with portal kids in December. Let the high school kids see how coaching carousel plays out, because I think there were 31 uh, head coaching changes, hundreds of assistant coaching
Yeah.
changes. And as much as you want to sit on your soapbox and talk about, oh, kids should pick a school because of a school and not because of a coach, that's not reality. And so
No.
you have like a Julian Sayans situation where the most legendary college football coach of all time unexpectedly announces his retirement, and now he's looking for a second place. He goes to Ohio State, and then their offensive coordinator leaves to take the Boston College job, only for UCLA's head coach to leave a head coaching job in the same conference to become an offensive coordinator. You can't expect kids not to be moving around like crazy. So now you have portal kids moving around, you have high school kids moving around, you have to recruit high school kids, portal kids, and your own roster so they don't go to the portal. So
That too.
and I have my wife complaining that I'm not, working. All I'm doing is working in December, and I'm not with the kids. So that's what's most important to me. So anyway, I don't think there are any right answers here, but I think we both agree that moving it to early December doesn't really solve any of the problems.
No, it shifts the problems. I think you just need to go back to just having February if they just want to do that, and then kind of go from there. Yeah, there's no great solutions either way, but we'll be around to talk about it either way.
Definitely. That is national recruiting analyst Greg Smith. I'm Adam Gorney for Rivals.com.